Welcome to the second Wednesday morning roundtable that we have here at Westminster, and we want to again thank the church for allowing us to use the sanctuary for these events over the next, I guess we're going to say 9 months, 9 months as we go. And we'll talk a little bit about our programming in a bit. Just a couple of quick announcements. We again want to thank our sponsors. I know there are several representatives from Tompkins Trust here, as well as the Emerson and Allen Foundations, as well as Wegmans, who have been very supportive of this as we've moved through. A couple of safety protocols. While you're in your pews, use your best judgment about your masks. We have allowed the candidates, as long as they're far apart, enough apart, we've checked with the church, they can take their masks off for the presentations. I know there are a couple of elected officials here, and I just want to mention them. I know the sheriff is here. Welcome to the Wednesday morning roundtable. You can give him a round of applause. He deserves it. I know Elaine Daly, who's on the ballot and who's a member of the legislature and head of the Health and Human Services Committee of the county, is also here. And then I know we have our you can give, yeah, that's you might want to do that to a fellow, so we want to welcome you both. And I know we have Debbie McCormick, and she does deserve a round of applause for a different reason. She has served on council for several years. She's decided not to seek re-election, and we really want to thank her for her public service. Thank you. So with that, we've had the candidates draw lots to do their opening statements. Jessie Klein is in front as usual. She is going to hold up a sign when they have used 1.5 minutes of their 2 minutes, and then a red sign that says stop, and I will at that point most likely interject at that point to tell them to finish up. They do not have to use all 2 minutes of their time if we would like to move through things. And then we have some questions that I know some of you have already texted me. I have been handed some questions, and I have some of my own. So we'll start with Terry Cuddy, who is on the Democratic and Working Families line. He is the incumbent who is running for re-election. Mr. Cuddy, welcome.
Thank you, Guy, and thank you, Jesse, organizers and members and sponsors of the Wednesday morning roundtable. Thank you, Ginny. Thank you all for having us here. I have served as on the Auburn City Council for the last 7 years. 7.5 years. I'm proud of my many achievements as a city councilor. These achievements include providing quality core services to the people of Auburn, whether it be improved infrastructure, clean water from your tap, timely trash pickup, a responsive police and fire department, or the recreation our parks provide. An immense amount of work goes into making it all happen for you, the public. Throughout the pandemic, the city always continued to do the necessary work for Auburnians. Auburn never stopped planning, never stopped working, and never stopped helping its citizens and the surrounding communities. This current council continues to provide the stability and fiscal responsible in a fiscally responsible and effective manner, even in the most uncertain of times. The city needs leaders that know how to work with county, state, and federal leaders to optimize our commitments to the public trust. This is manifested in the millions of dollars brought into the city through infrastructure projects such as bridges, buildings, and roads to economic development initiatives aimed at growing opportunities for business downtown, our technology park, and throughout our great city. I'm running again because my work is not done. Owasco Lake is still under threat of harmful algal blooms and other contaminants. I will fight to enforce relevant rules and regulations to protect the watershed and our drinking water. I want to bring programming for our youth at our newly renovated public parks. With my experience on City Council, along with my 17 years experience as a vocational teacher at Cayuga Onondaga BOCES, I want to continue to help train our future workforce for the new challenges that lie ahead. It is imperative that Auburn continues to build on what I started when I first elected. It is a destination, a model of what government can do when it is working right and working for the common good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cuddy. We'll now hear from Ginny Kent, who is on the Democratic and Working Families line. And just as a disclaimer, Ms. Kent and I happen to work in the same office, just so you all know.
Oh, no.
welcome.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you to the Wednesday Morning Roundtable Committee sponsors and the church. I'm glad to be here. I was born and raised in the city of Auburn. My father worked as a union electrician while Mom stayed home to raise the 6 children. After I finished school and explored life outside of Auburn, my husband and I chose to come back to my hometown to raise our family, and we bought our home on East Genesee Street in the early 1990s. As a mother and a daughter, I know firsthand that Auburn is a great place to grow up and to raise a family. Currently, I work as Associate Director of Development for the Cayuga County Community College Foundation, and I serve as a trustee for Seymour Public Library. Prior to that, I worked at the Cayuga County Chamber of Commerce for 13 years, where the focus is economic development and tourism. In addition, I oversaw Leadership Cayuga and the Finger Lakes Grants Information Center. I am well positioned to be an effective city councilor. My community service has also prepared me for the challenges of a city councilor. I was co-founder of the Auburn Beautification Commission, a member of the City of Auburn Comprehensive Planning Committee, and the Auburn Industrial Development Authority, or ADA as we refer to it. During my time on the ADA board, one of the projects I'm most proud of is the addition of the Hilton Garden Inn to our local economy. It has become an invaluable asset to our tourism market. As I go door to door, I am heartened by what I hear. People like living here. They can see the positive changes in Auburn, such as upgrades to the playgrounds, the efforts the city is making in addressing abandoned properties, and the attention the city is paying to our trees and our sidewalks. While Auburn has so much to be thankful for, there are challenges ahead. Recovery from the pandemic, protecting Owasco Lake, providing safe drinking water are priorities. As your next city councilor, I will work alongside my colleagues on council to meet these challenges and continue to move Auburn forward in a positive direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kent. We'll now hear from former mayor and current Cayuga County legislator in the 13th District, Tim Lattimore. Mr. Lattimore, welcome back to the Wednesday Morning Roundtable.
Well, it's good to be here. It's great to be in a church. That means we can't lie, right?
That would be correct.
Oh, good. I'm Tim Lattimore. I was a city councilor for 4 years. I was a mayor for 4 years. I was on the city and county planning board for 10 years. Presently, I'm finishing my term with the county for 12 years. I think I have the experience, the strength, and the hope to get things done. As I look around, I see Mr. Hutchinson and yourself that served on city council. I remember Jim had beat me for a council seat, but we flew down to Texas and we brought back Snyder General to Auburn. That was a great accomplishment. It was just funny how just over the weekend I had breakfast with Henry Beck, who owns Tessie Plastics, and which is a great employer for the area. They got about 4,000 people, but it was good to be able to get together, even after being defeated by Jim and yourself. You were incoming mayor, and bring back industry. And we need to have those job opportunities. It's great to see Tessie in our industrial plaza, employing and operating that operation. So it's those types of things that I want to continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Mr. Otterstatter, who is also on the Republican and conservative lines with Mr. Lattimore. Oddly enough, they just all sat by party affiliation together. So, Mr. Otterstatter owns High Octane downtown. If you haven't been inside his business, you should have been there by now. So, sir, you have 2 minutes as well.
Good morning, and thank you to the Wednesday Morning Roundtable for inviting us. My name is Rob Otterstatter. I'm a 9th generation Auburnian. I am proud to have grown up here in Auburn. I graduated nearly 30 years ago. In fact, went to school with Mr. Cuddy. I'm married to my wife, Joni. I have 3 beautiful children. My oldest, Leah, is a student at the University of Oklahoma studying severe weather meteorology. And my 2 youngest are just now entering into the school system locally. 4 years ago, we made the decision to return back to Auburn, New York, my hometown, to open a farm-to-table restaurant and coffee house, Octane Social House. I'm very proud of my hometown. I've always been very proud of being from Auburn. Auburn is the cultural crossroads, it seems, in upstate New York, with many famous residents, many national ties. It always amazes me. No matter where I've traveled, people are familiar with the folks that have come through Auburn. I do struggle with some of the aspects of Auburn. Auburn is hemorrhaging residents. We've lost nearly 1,500 residents in the last 3 years, and that's about 5.5% of our population. There is an uptick in reported violence and drug-related crime, which has led to an increase in property crime. As I look at this city that I love so much, I feel as though we are stuck without a clear vision for moving forward. Auburn is a great place, but I feel it could be better. I believe that I come to the table with some skills that would be helpful. I'm a retired community policing commander. I have a doctorate in educational leadership, and I've worked to revitalize numerous cities across the United States. I've spoken on my successes at the International Exposition in Aichi, Japan, and I believe we need a positive visionary to help correct the direction of our city, and I believe I fill that role. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go with questions that either have been passed up or I've come up with. We'll go in a rotation. We'll start with Mr. Cuddy first time round and go through and hopefully be able to get through all 4 rounds at least. If after you've spoken and someone says something you want to follow up with, just give me the high sign and Jesse will give you an extra 1 minute on that. So I want to start with something that's been in the news, especially in the last 10 days, with the issue of medical marijuana and marijuana in our community. We know that the state of New York is allowing communities to opt out of adult use cannabis retail dispensaries or the consumption licenses for localities. Oddly enough, Auburn has not had a public hearing on this. The decision, I believe, has to be made by December 31st. We know that at least one town in Cuyahoga County has already opted out, and several are discussing it. So even though this is a decision that will not affect the council necessarily on January 1st, if anyone, at least one of you will be there, what should the city's position be right now on the opt-out issue? Mr. Cuddy, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Guy. So the council has had, during session at council meetings, Corporation Council gave a presentation on the new law, and there were people in the public to be heard section to talk about their support for lack of a better term, opting in. We listened to all the parties at council, and there was really there's no mandate to have a public hearing. We discussed it, and as of right now, the default is everyone opt in. So there has not been a public outcry regarding legalization and sale. So one of the things that I do want to talk about is being on ADA, Auburn Industrial Development Authority. We got good news last week, as Mr. Cosentino said, that there will be a production facility, Terrapin, in our technology park. And in fact, tonight, ADA is going to be voting on the sale of that property. And when we talk about bringing jobs to the area, it is this council and the current ADA board that has allowed, companies like Terrapin and expansion of companies like Tessie. So, I believe that we have done due diligence, given the direction of the state or lack thereof, but I have not felt the need to have, there's never been any, from my perspective, any thing but transparency about the issue.
Ginny, Ken, on the issue of opting in, opting out for marijuana for municipalities such as the city of Auburn.
Thanks, Guy. So the legalization of marijuana has brought this issue to Auburn. We didn't ask for it, but here we are, and we're going to deal with it the best way we know how. The new law allows people over 21 to possess and use up to 3 ounces regardless of where it's purchased. So right out of the gate, you know that people in this community will be using it. The question is, where will they be purchasing it? If we opt out, we would be losing our portion of a 13% excise tax, which may represent millions of dollars of revenue. And this revenue has no restrictions on the city of Auburn for its use. Regulations of the sales and use is still evolving, because I've been checking a lot of websites to see where we stand on that. And it's going to involve a change in mindset for every one of us, whether you're an employer, whether you work for the government, you're a parent, you're in law enforcement. Every one of us is going to have to go through our own re-education and rethinking about marijuana. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Legislator, on this issue of the city of Auburn opting in or out of the legislation?
Well, back in 1969, I was in California, so I've been around, unlike President Clinton. I did, well, anyways. But anyways, 30 years ago, I decided not to use anything, and I've been in helping people who are addicted to different forms of chemistry. We got $60 million in the county for tobacco money, and I think we misspent a lot of that because some of it should have gone for addiction type of things with smoking. We sued the opioid distributors and manufacturers, and we are going to receive some monies. And I'm telling my fellow legislators and chairwoman that that money should go towards direct rehabilitation. This opportunity that's knocking on the door now with the marijuana is, you know, it's great that they want to come to Auburn, New York. People are going to do what they want to do. I believe in personal freedom. But I do want to have whatever revenues become of it that are dictated towards rehabilitation and prevention. I mean, I know a little bit about the drug, and I think that it's a gateway drug to some people. So hopefully we can get into deeper discussions. But the economics of it, I mean, vices. At one time we had an opportunity to bring in Delago to Bombardier. It was 1,400 union jobs, $8 million in property taxes, and went to the next county. That would have been a better vice than maybe marijuana. Anyways.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Otterstatter, on this issue of the opt-in, opt-out.
I've been following the development of Terrapin. It comes out of the state of Colorado, where I worked for quite a while as a police officer. When Colorado legalized marijuana for medical and then recreational use, it changed the dynamics in the state drastically. DUIDs went up, driving under the influence of drugs. The number of children that wound up going to the hospital for eating their parents' edibles went up substantially. So in a city where we already have substance abuse issues, we need to move forward smartly. This is a great opportunity for economic development. There is a 13% retail sales tax. 9% goes to the state, 4% comes local. So I think that we do need to have a public hearing to discuss what is the best way for moving forward, but I do believe we need to move forward with this.
Mr. Cuddy, you'll have 1 minute, and anybody else wants to follow up will have another minute.
So the law as it stands is that right now anybody can use marijuana in New York State. So I feel it is a more responsible thing as a municipality, as a city, to control the manner in which it is sold and the place at which it is sold. If Senate or Aurelius or other towns that do the default, which is we are, they're not, from my understanding, I'm not aware of any public hearings that those municipalities are holding. But if they do the default or opt in, people from Auburn are just going to go there and bring it back. So the issues that Mr. Otterstatter is talking about are going to happen or anyway. And those issues, again, I think they point to, you know, the worst case scenario. And I personally cannot legislate always on worst case scenarios. There, as he said, Colorado was one of the early states. New York has learned from all the states that have legalized it, and I think we're doing a better job.
Mayor Lattimore, you have a minute to follow up.
I see the sheriff in the audience, and I know we just reopened the AA rooms at the jail. There's a lot of people who are incarcerated that have, you know, alcohol, drugs. They're incarcerated because of that, and it costs us money to house them and try to rehab them. So hopefully whatever industry we come in, whether it's beer, whether it's wine, any industry, you know, should be able to clean up its own byproducts that are costly to society.
Anything to add? All right.
So the only thing I would add to what has been said is I think education is going to be incredibly important as we move forward. I don't know that these are all worst case scenarios. These are just real case scenarios. The fact remains that it is enticing, and children will get into their parents' edibles if they're not secured, and we know that parents aren't always the best at securing things from their children. So I would say access to the schools for education is certainly going to be paramount.
Thank you. Mayor Lattimore mentioned the issue of money and how opioid and tobacco money can or wasn't, may have not been used correctly. This is not necessarily a city issue alone, but we'll start with Ginny Ken on this. The county is going to get about $14 million to deal with the after effects or the current effects of COVID. While the city may not necessarily vote on that, you will be having legislators who will. What should be some of the priorities that would benefit the city of Auburn of that $14 million, since many of those decisions do have to be made after January 1st, 2022?
So just to...
And if you could use your microphone. Sorry.
Thank you, Guy. So just to remind folks, the city of Auburn also entered into an opioid lawsuit. I don't think they've heard the results of how much money that's going to mean for the city. But I believe that the funds should definitely go into the transition. The funds should definitely continue to support the ongoing efforts to help combat opioid misuse in the community. Currently, the city of Auburn is offering Narcan training. The DRI provided significant funding for Nick's Rides Clubhouse. And we're also very involved in the healing program, which is run by Monica Salvage, and that's really looking at the study of what are the best ways to help these folks, and they have different models of treatment. So out of the gate, I would say education and continuing to support the programs that exist in the city of Auburn for our community members.
just clarifying, this is still in your time, is the $14 million that's coming to the county, what priority should the city have for that money that's from the CARES Act?
Oh,
Sorry. Go ahead. No, we'll start with Ms.
Okay.
Kent, and we're going to work our way around.
okay. So, you're talking about the CARES Act, ARPA, or the
We were just confused about, you started with
opioid?
No, I was just saying that you have a windfall of money to a county. Sorry.
Sorry about
Bad analogy. So let's
Okay,
start
so
over.
would you,
So
give me
$14
the-
million is coming to the county. What should city legislators and city councilors be telling the county there should be priorities for? So we'll count that as your follow-up on opioids, and now you can go to the $14 million for 2 minutes.
Okay. So the CARES Act, so the 14 million can go to, it's overseen, there are guidelines for it. So it can be used for different areas, including transitioning the post-COVID recovery, replacing lost public sector revenue, addressing negative economic impacts, supporting public health expenditures, and investing in water, sewer, broadband infrastructure. So what I believe is that the county and the city leaders should sit down and talk about the best use for that funding for the city.
Okay. Mr. Lattimore, some decisions have been made. You're a member of the legislature. Some decisions have been made on some of that money, but some of it will be after you leave the county legislature. What should be priorities that help the city of Auburn on that $14 million?
Well, the city is part of the county. I think we established that years ago, and I'd like to see a better bridge communication. You know, it shouldn't be them versus us or whatever, but anything that we can do, whether it's buying rock salt, I think, you know, we had an opportunity to lower our costs with a staple like rock salt, and then somehow we got confused. But anyways, we should sit down and have everybody, just like a community block grant communication, have everybody sit down and come up with some ideas as to how to use those funds to better everybody. You know, as I said, the city is part of the county, and you know, the more people we get here, the more the county gains, everybody gains. So that's about it.
Thank you. Mr. Otterstatter, on this issue of how maybe some of that $14 million can trickle into the city for priorities.
For me, it's going to be about quality of life and making sure that we're spending the money appropriately. This will be a one-time opportunity for the city of Auburn, a financial shot in the arm, so to speak, that monies can go towards post-COVID needs, such as mental illness. People have been shut in for the last going on 2 years, on and off. We have substance abuse issues locally. A couple of years ago, FEMA did a study that showed that the Finger Lakes region is one of the safest areas in the United States to live. People during COVID started migrating to the area. So I think quality of life issues, looking at drinking water, looking at the mental illness issue, and the substance abuse is going to be important.
All right, thank you. Counselor, this issue of the $14 million and how it might help city priorities.
Yes, so thank you, guys. So I think that the priorities that the city has laid out already and has come forward with suggestions, you know, some of that overlaps with the county, and I do believe that the city does work well with the county already. But what the city wants to see prioritized is human services, much like bringing aid to food pantries, also mental illness. We also are interested in helping businesses continue to survive through COVID. So setting up grants and loan programs for businesses. We're also interested in, as I said earlier in my opening statement, the city has never stopped planning for the future. So while everything was shut down, we were continuing to work on the planning, and prior to the pandemic beginning, tourism, as you know, is a big factor in our economic growth. So we prioritize some money towards arts and cultural nonprofits. So we've started, there is more time to work with the county, but we are beginning to, have the applications prepared for these organizations to get money. Also, the next round, I'm interested in water and sewer, home ownership, encouraging home ownership, and programming for our youth in our parks. So thank you.
Thank you. And that was one of the questions from the floor. Another question that comes up is, and this goes to Legislator Lattimore first, would you support, if directed, if Kathy Hochul, the new governor, mandates that all municipal employees, including for the city of Auburn, be vaccinated for the coronavirus? You have 2 minutes on this subject.
Well, on the front page of the paper today is our leader, Aileen McNabb Coleman, and she had struggles because she had an immune system, and so there was a long time in which she wasn't vaccinated, but she finally did get vaccinated and came down with the COVID over the weekend or sometime shortly. So I think that we didn't ask people in the hospitals when they were treating people before the vaccine who came down with this illness. They were heroes then, and they're heroes now. So I think it shouldn't be mandated. I think we're going to lose a lot of people. People are standing up saying, this is my body and I want to do what I want to do with it. So I think we do have individual rights. I don't think it should be mandated. Everybody knows they live in a society where you have to protect yourself. If you live in a bad neighborhood, you lock your doors, So I think it's an individual thing. That's it, I guess.
Mr. Otterstatter, if the new governor mandates that municipal employees are required to get the vaccine, would you be supportive of that as a city councilor?
So I am vaccinated. My employees are vaccinated. I support the vaccination. I want to first recognize that, as was mentioned earlier, the folks that were working on the front line, they were heroes a year ago, and now some of them are out of a job as a result of not getting the vaccine because they have concerns about the vaccine. So as I begin to think about this, looking at both sides, I think it's important that we recognize that healthcare is a personal decision that is between you and your physician. And I have a relative who is not vaccinated because they have had complications from a similar vaccine. I support the vaccine. I support the oversight, and I do support testing. But again, I think it comes down to a decision between you and your physician.
Thank you. Mr. Cuddy, this might impact you between now and January 1st anyway, if the governor makes a decision. So would you be supportive of a mandate if the governor came down with that for municipal employees?
Great, thank you, Guy. I am vaccinated, and as soon as I could be vaccinated as a public school teacher, I was. I understand the apprehension, especially early on when the vaccine just had come out earlier in this year. I understood the apprehension. But over time, science has demonstrated that the vaccines are safe and effective. And now choosing not to get the vaccine can be a public health risk. I have an 11-year-old son who has not been able to get vaccinated because of his age. He is vulnerable. Those who are older, who have underlying conditions, are vulnerable. We have seen this virus run amok in areas with lower vaccination rates, and continued refusal opens up the door to virus mutations and variants that can make current vaccinations become less effective, and thus the cycle continue. And I don't think anyone wants to see this pandemic go on forever. So I believe that once vaccines are approved by the FDA, they should be mandated, much like the measles, rubella, like all children get vaccinated for diseases to go into school. And I think that, as long as we do it based on the science and in a measured way, it's important.
Ginny Kent, on this issue of if there's a municipal employee mandate.
So this is a difficult situation to discuss because it gets personal. And there are people who cannot get the vaccine because of health challenges or because of their age. But by vaccinating those of us who are able to get it, we are doing our part to help ensure that those that are not vaccinated will be in a safer situation should they get the disease. So I'm vaccinated, my family's vaccinated, and I do believe that by mandating safe vaccinations, we will begin to see the pandemic in our rearview mirror, so I would support it.
Mr. Lattimore, you'll have 1 minute to follow up.
I am vaccinated. Not for rabies, but I'm vaccinated. There was a question years ago in regards to fluoridation of our water, and they wanted to add fluoridation, and I thought that it would be better off to have individuals fluoridate their toothpaste or whatever they wanted. So, I'm just concerned about more chemicals in our systems. But I mean, I'm for vaccinations. I mean, kids have to have smallpox, all the other different vaccinations to go to school. But I just don't know how it's going to end.
Thank you. So let me preface this question that this is not occurring, but it may. Jeff Dygert is on track right now to be, I think, the second longest city manager in the city's history. And there is a possibility at some point he's going to retire, a well-deserved retirement. And at some point, a city council that you may serve on may have to do a search. The two-part question, and Mr. Otterstatter, you'll start with this, is what qualities would you can rate, by the way, Mr. Dygert's performance, but more importantly, what qualities would you like to see in a city manager, and how would you conduct a search? And again, Mr. Mason, just tell the city manager, I'm not saying he's leaving, but just in case, because we've gone through 13 of these in 30 years. There's a probability issue here. So, Mr. Otterstatter.
The city manager's position is an incredibly important position, and having served on my church's vestry, in fact, within the first 30 days that I was elected to our church's vestry, my rector decided it was time to retire. And I had been elected from our vestry to serve as the senior warden. That was the top lay person in the congregation, which meant that then I was responsible for overseeing all matters for the church. Surprise. In the same manner that we looked for the appropriate replacement of our rector, we would need to use the same procedures, identify all the requirements. We want someone with public safety in mind, someone with public administration. So looking at what's going to be best for moving the city forward. Personally, I think that a visionary, someone that would see the greatness of Auburn, would be an important aspect of that position.
Thank you. Mr. Cuddy, 2 minutes on this search issue. Should it come about?
So I was involved in the hiring of City Manager Jeff Diger. And if you remember, we had done a traditional city manager search, and which means we had people from all over the country apply for the job. We did interviews. In that interim period, under the recommendation of the then city manager, Doug Selby, he did recommend Jeff Dygert serve as the interim manager. And to be honest, I myself was like, I wouldn't have thought of the fire chief at that time to be the person for the interim, but I trusted Mr. Selby, and I did see that his leadership at the firehouse was his strongest asset. So one of the things that the reasons why I decided that would be a good idea was, I trusted that, and I proved to be right. He has served as an effective leader in this community. Much of the success that the current council has is because of his leadership. So there are intangible things such as leadership and leadership style and ability to work with people and the ability to basically understand the chain of command, which he does. And the morale of the workers are good. The progress of the city has improved. So again, we interviewed all candidates that had, the public administration degrees. But Jeff Dygert has something that most city managers that we interviewed or that are even out there knows how to work with people, knows how to lead with respect and an authority that is respected by not only the people that serve him, but by the people of Auburn. So I'm really proud of what we have done, and if, God forbid, he does retire anytime soon, we will look for the same leadership qualities that Jeff Dygert has showed the city over his tenure as a city manager.
Thank you. Ginny, Ken, on the question, if you had to do a search, what qualities would you look at, and what would the process be?
So I have, over the years, been on various search committees, and sometimes we hit it out of the park, and sometimes we didn't. But in the time that you're developing how to replace a city manager, I believe, first of all, you need to have a handle yourself on what the major issues are that you're facing, and you want this person coming in to be part of their strengths. So the search committee really should be well informed and include stakeholders from important areas. I do believe that city manager in our form of government needs to be comfortable in the human resource role, because, as Mr. Cuddy said, they have to sort of be responsible for the morale of the staff, and they also want to have their staff feel good carrying out their jobs every day. I also think that the person should come with an understanding already of the area. So if you feel like you're telling them about your city, that's a red flag right there. You start out with lofty goals. They have experience in public administration, they've got this degree, they're familiar with the area, they've got a relative here. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to that feeling you get, and I think a couple of you referenced it, that this is the right person for the job. It may be someone in our city, it may be someone from Alaska, we don't know. But when you put it all together, I would cast a broad net, including local candidates, and just take your time making the right decision.
Mr. Lattimore, on this issue of if you had to do a search, what qualities, because you're tight, what qualities and process?
The last night I had a meeting at the county with, we're looking for a new HR director, but I think looking at you and Jim and some other people, we've gone through a lot of different managers over the years. And Jeff and the mayor used to work for me, and I think I know Jeff's qualities. I did disagree with him when he was fire chief that maybe the manning was a little too much, or the overtime was a little too much. I think there was one time when we were laying off 5 police officers and 15 CSCA workers. And I said, you got to trim it back. So, I mean, there's been, I think Jeff was a good pick. I disagree with him on the ambulance system, the way we're putting that together. But I think we do have to make changes in the way we deliver our services. I always talked about a metro system between the cities and the towns, but we could never get that done because of personalities and who's going to be king. So hopefully, city managers come and go. Jeff is a good one. I hope that he's going to be happy, and maybe he might run for mayor or something. Who knows? But anyways, I think I've seen good people. As I mentioned to Jim Hutchinson before the meeting, that Stephanie worked with one of the great city managers who were down in Ithaca, and I tried to hire him here for the city, but he wouldn't leave Tom Young at the time. So I think I have a good quality of who can do a good job for us. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Otterstatter. You'll have another minute to follow up.
I think looking for someone that has previous successes is important, someone who understands the idea of revitalization, re-imaging, can give the city direction. We need to stop the depopulation locally. We need to encourage young families, and we need to keep our seniors. And I think those are all important aspects.
Mr. Cuddy, you'll have 1 minute.
I do think that the question of population as being an indicator of a city's success is very misleading. I think that quality of life is more important. The population of New York State, let alone the Rust Belt, has been in decline since the 1930s. So, we can't blame the current city council for the population decline. What I think is more important is the quality of life is improving for the people that are here. And, I think that, to assign population decrease to the city of Auburn as though that the city is doing something wrong, I don't think is very fair.
Anyone else to follow up? So I'm going to keep on track, and we've gone through one round with 4 questions for each of you going first. So we're going to finish off with closing statements. And as I said, we're going to go in reverse order so that we can get everyone out of here at 9 o'clock. We're going to hear from each of the candidates for 2 minutes in their closing. We're going to hear from Rob Otterstatter first, who is on the Republican and Conservative lines. Sir?
I want to thank everybody for attending and for the opportunity to debate this morning. I come to this election with experience that includes writing and managing federal and state grants, working towards reducing crime, revitalizing cities, re-imaging cities. I have a vision. I love this city. Auburn has a lot of unrealized potential. We have an incredibly rich history here. I believe we need to move forward while still remembering our past. I am personally invested in our city. I have moved my young family here to make this my forever home. I opened a much-needed new business downtown, helping continue the revitalization downtown. And I've brought back my expertise learned from my time away to try and benefit my home city. I think we need to stop making decisions that drive away our seniors and young people. I think we need to start emulating successful cities. I think we need to stop raising housing assessments, especially those at the end of a pandemic. hopefully the end. We need to stop raising taxes. We need to make Auburn safe. We need to bring business back, making Auburn relevant and vibrant. We need to give more people reasons to call Auburn home. And we need to stop talking about things and start doing things. And I humbly ask for your vote on November 2nd.
Thank you. We'll now hear from his running mate, former mayor and current county legislator Tim Lattimore, who's on the Republican and conservative lines. Mr. Lattimore.
Thank you for having us today. And as Rob said, I mean, I love Auburn, and public safety is the #1 issue. And yesterday there was another shooting down by Delavan Street on Wood Street. There was a shooting the other day down by Balloons on Barber Street. The violence, I've never felt unsafe in this city, even though it was a prison city for my whole life. But I never felt unsafe, and I do now. We need to strengthen our police force. We need to have neighborhood policing. I've asked for it over the years. We're hopefully, we had a lot of retirees lately. I think the average age on the police force is now 2 years, Rob? Is that what it was? 2 years on the force. I mean, everybody's moving up into ranks. So we need to make sure that our streets are safe. And for years I complained about the Delavan House. I happen to have work out of an office that's close by there, and day after day seeing the drug deals, day after day seeing problems. That they finally did shut that operation down. But as I go around on different campaigns, I notice the same drug houses. The neighborhood people come out and tell me that there's a drug house, and we need to shut them down. And hopefully we can do that. So public safety is still my #1 issue, and my running mate, I just have to give him some kudos. He's a retired police officer after being shot 3 times. So in the line of duty, he's terrific. And having him come back and invest in our downtown is double kudos. And his aunt used to work was a teacher at Seward School, the original Seward School. Grandmother. I'm sorry. Anyways, thank you very much, and public safety.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Ginny Kent, who is on the Democratic and Working Families line. Ms. Kent, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you for hosting this forum. The role of a city is to meet the needs of its residents through services such as fire, police, emergency services, public works, water, code enforcement. I could go on and on. Our quality of life depends on how well the city does this. And so does our ability to support and attract jobs and businesses, provide a positive experience for tourists, and encourage people to move to our city. Even during the pandemic, Auburn continued providing essential services, and work continued on important projects such as the State Street Bridge. I have faith in our city, and I look forward to bringing my experience and knowledge to council to keep us on the right track. As your next city councilor, I will make sure Auburn has your best interest in mind. I will make sure those basic core services that our residents have come to expect from the city will continue to be there for you. I will work with my colleagues on council to keep Auburn moving in the right direction. We will make responsible fiscal decisions today to guarantee a better tomorrow for our children and our grandchildren. I need your support. Please vote for me and Terry Cuddy for Auburn City Council on November 2nd, or if you'd like to vote early, beginning on October 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the lone incumbent, Terry Cuddy, who's on the Democratic and Working Families line. Councilor.
Thank you, Guy, and thank you to all those who attended today. I'd like to thank my fellow candidates for being here to discuss the important issues that affect Auburn. As you can easily see, my opponents like to constantly point out at what they think is wrong with Auburn. Ginny, Kent, and I are more interested in promoting what is right about Auburn. As I mentioned in my opening statement, Auburn is progressing forward. The city builds and works for its people, and the people benefit from these works. This wasn't always the case. Before I was elected, the city was in fiscal distress, losing taxpayers $1 million a year, which comes to about a 3% raise on property taxes, thanks to a failed energy project brought to you by legislator Lattimore when he was mayor. In those days, there was no plan to solve the problem. Once I was sworn in, the council went right to work and fixed the mess that was wrought. Now our fiscal house is in order. We are more able to serve the public efficiently and effectively. We are more stable fiscally. Even with these strides, we cannot afford to make the same mistakes of the past because we are still paying for them. If you, the voters, want stability and common sense at City Hall, I ask you to vote for Ginny, Kent, and me on Election Day, November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cuddy. We want to thank all four of you for putting yourselves out there during the campaign in what is really an unorthodox time for campaigning. I know we'll see you in another week at the college for, I think, the second and final get-together for the four of you with the forum sponsored by the Citizen and the college, and we look forward to having you there to share your views. A couple of just housekeeping things as we keep on track as we end. Masks are driving me nuts for a different reason. Sometimes I can't recognize faces or where they are, but I didn't recognize Councilor Cuddy in the back, and I apologize for that. So welcome to the Wednesday morning roundtable. I know Katie Lacey is here, and she would remind you that you can start early voting on Saturday for the next couple of days from there, and then you can go to the polls on November 2nd, and we encourage you to do that. We again want to thank Tompkins, the Allen Foundation, the Emerson Foundation, and Wegmans for sponsoring these sessions. We'll be back on December 8th. Stephanie DeVito will be moderating the panel then. They'll be with some downtown and Auburn eateries and shops with a focus on partnerships and sustainability. So I did mention that was December 8th. There is no November program. We made the decision 5 years ago to combine November and December because nobody wanted to come here Christmas week. So though this church will most likely be decorated very lovely at that point. So we want to remind you December 8th is the next program. We hope you're safe, wear a mask, get vaccinated, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.